I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the real estate journey. Okay, so real estate is property, right? We all know that. What technically is real estate? It's real property. It's attached to the ground, the earth. Now, I'm not looking at a dictionary definition, but from what I'm in the business and what I sell, it's dirt. It's anything attached to the dirt. That is what real estate is. People want to buy it because they want to live there. They want to raise their families there, or they want to buy it so they can rent it out and make money on their investment. A lot of times people are unsure how you purchase real estate. Obviously, you go to somebody, they have their land for sale, you buy it. But it's not a simple, straightforward transaction like buying a car or buying groceries or, so many things that we buy every day. Because there's literally years, one of the complicated aspects is there's years and years of history of that changing ownership and making sure that the person that owns it legally owns it, and making sure there's no liens on it or encumbrances or easements through it or mineral rights that don't belong to the current owner. There's a myriad of things to make sure that the property is purchased, and when you own it, it's what we call free and clear. Now, free and clear is a term that, to me, I don't think I even have to explain it because I know exactly what that means. But to you as a home buyer, that might not mean anything to you. Free and clear. Oh, now we get to move into our home. Well, what free and clear means is a title company has gone and they've done their research on the title. They've looked back on the history of the title to see the chain of ownership from when that lot was first platted or split off or first shown as owned somewhere. And they have tons of records. They have paper records. They have computer records that they have to search through. And it typically takes them about 2 weeks to do that search. And then they see if there's any easements. Are there power line easements? Are there utility easements? Is there county road easements? So if your property has county road frontage, there's a good chance that part of what you would see as your property has an easement, so that if the state or the county needs to come in and widen that road or do any maintenance or do maintenance on ditches, they don't have to come knock at every door and say, hey, we're going to do this road. We got to do this upgrade or maintenance to it. Do we have your permission? So they have an easement. So we look at that. We look at, was there a contractor that didn't get paid somewhere along the line and they put an encumbrance on your property? We look at that. By we, I mean the title company. I don't look at that. And then they look at, are there any utilities easements or, power lines going overhead or underground through your property? Those both happen. Are there easements to a property behind your property? Well, what does that mean? So if there's a property that has an easement over your property, then that gives them permission, depending on how the easement is. The easement could be occasional access. It could be continual access. Easements have a wide variety of how they're worded. And so if it's occasional use, then obviously you can't be driving in there, 24/7. If it's unconditional use, or it can be a utility easement so that the property that has the easement can get utilities to their property, or it may just be a road easement. So there's all kinds of easements, but basically what it means is that you have an easement over your property or an easement to your property. You can use somebody else's land to get to your property, or somebody else can use your land to get to their property. So that's free and clear. We've looked into all of that. The title company has looked into all of that. They send us a report, and then they issue what's called title insurance to ensure that, if we miss something, we've got an insurance policy to cover damages for that or any issues that may arise down the road. So that's getting title free and clear. What I want to back up and talk about for a little bit is lending, okay? Because lending, I don't know the actual percentage, I should pull it up. But lending is typically how transactions are funded. And by funded, I mean bought and paid for. So if I came to you and I was going to buy a car, I would either pull a wad of cash out of the car with me. Say you're selling your 2015 VW Jetta TDI for $6,500. I go to my bank. I pull out the cash, count out $6,500. I walk over to you, say, hey, I want your VW. I like that it's a TDI. I love turbo diesels, especially in a small car, because who doesn't? It's a fun little car. And then I count it out and I hand it to you. Once I hand it to you and you've signed the bill of sale over to me, that is what we call in real estate funded. So if you sign the paperwork over to me, but then I never give you the money, the transaction's never funded. And so what a title company does is they babysit that process. And everybody comes in and signs. And then if there's a loan involved, we wait for funding. We wait for the bank to wire the funds to the title company. The title company then has access to both people's financial situation. So the buyer, when they bring the earnest money check, and then the seller, they are in charge of paying the seller, dispersing the money to the agents, and anybody else that if there's an encumbrance or a lien on the property, they'll take care of paying that off. However, they work that out. So once they get the money, the transaction is funded. But you still don't own the property, even though it's funded. They don't make the payouts yet. But then they take the title down to the county courthouse and they get it recorded. So they go to the county courthouse, say, hey, everything looks good. Let's record this. They record the transaction. At that point, you now own your new home. Funding is pivotal in a deal. It is the final large step in a deal. If you're doing cash, you personally fund the transaction. You wire the money or write a cashier's check to the title company and you fund the transaction. Once it's funded, then it can record. Once it's recorded, you then own, or the new purchaser owns the property. Okay, back to lenders. Lenders work with you as a buyer to see how much money you approve for. And if you don't approve, do they have any special programs or is there specific things that you need to work with? Now, typically when I talk to buyers, they haven't talked to a lender or they've talked to an online lender. They've done an online application. They haven't ever had a face-to-face conversation or a voice-to-voice conversation with a lender. They don't have somebody that they can call up and talk to. So what I recommend, and what makes my job a lot easier and makes things less stressful for my buyers, is to have a lender that you can sit there and talk to. You can meet for coffee if you need to, or you can pick up the phone and call them, or you can text them and they will get back to you. I have a handful of lenders that I work with that do that for me and do that for my clients. Now, sometimes some of these big companies like Rocket Mortgage, I think there's a couple others, but that's the one that comes to mind right now. They might offer you a better deal or a discounted rate, but oftentimes that's promotional. Sometimes, very rarely, they can actually get you the better rate, but you're going to pay some at some point to somebody. The rates are pretty level across the board, and the loss of that customer service I've found typically isn't worth it. Because if you lose a house because you can't get a hold of your lender at a crucial stage in the transaction, well, you lost a house that you would have loved to move into. So I always recommend you get a local lender. And I'm not getting compensated, I'm not getting a plug. That's just from my position in the real estate world, the best practice to have the most successful operation. Now, let's go back to lending. And I can't stress this part enough. If you are working or looking for property before you have been pre-qualified, you're getting the cart before the horse. There's no need to wait until you're ready to pull the trigger to talk to a lender. If you start thinking, oh, I would like to buy in the next year or two, go talk to a lender. Get a lender into your corner. Do an online application, and then with that lender, and have the conversation. What do we need to do so that in a year when we're ready to buy property, our finances aren't going to be a concern? Because that's the biggest piece of the puzzle, is how are you going to pay for this property? It's a big investment, especially in this day and age. Can't hardly find properties for under $400,000 in the North Idaho area, especially in Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Rathdrum, and Hayden. There are some, but the numbers are lower. So you're typically, I believe our median home price is $550,000 or somewhere in the mid $500,000 ranges. That's over $500,000 you're looking at to buy a home. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't walk around with $500,000 in my back pocket. So that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. It's typically people's most valuable asset. So you can never talk to a lender too early on in the process. If you're looking at homes before you've talked to a lender, you really are getting the cart before the horse. Can't stress that enough. Talk to a lender before you look at homes, before you find an agent, before anything really. Now you can talk to an agent. I talk to people all the time that are 2 or 3 years out. That's what I do. They hop on my website, they're looking at properties, I give them a call, and that's fine. But talk to a lender. Whatever you do, for my sake, for everybody else's sake out there, for the sanity of all real estate agents, please talk to a lender sooner rather than later. And if you don't have a lender, call me. I can put you in touch with a lender. I can put you in touch with a couple different lenders. I don't work with a ton of lenders. I'll work with any lenders, but I don't refer to a ton of lenders because I have a few that I work with that are exceptional at what they do. They treat my clients exceptionally well because of the relationship that I've developed with them. So talk to a lender. Talk to me. Let's find you a house. It's going to be great. Philip, North Idaho, out.